just walk into the studio here. Come on in here. You're part of the show now. Yeah, come on in here. We got time. I already lied to you once today. I was telling him I already lied to you once today. On Friday, I thought that you were going to be on at 10 o'clock. That was my disconnect. And I said, hey, can you come on at 9:50, thinking 10 o'clock. So we really could have done the segment at 9:20. So good morning. So
good morning.
I don't know if you know this, but today on this date in history, the 17th of June, the first roller coaster in America opened today.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was that?
Oh, now you're putting me to the test. Come on here, Lacy.
Tell me all the details.
In Coney Island. Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York, known as the Switchback Railway. It was the brainchild of Lamarcus Thompson, and it traveled approximately 6 miles per hour.
Okay. No going up and down.
I don't think that's a very
anything like that yet.
But it cost a nickel to ride, which back in the day would have been quite the expensive toy.
You would have saved up for that.
So anyway, joining us now is the new contributor to RiverBender.com, Lacy McDonald. How has your writing experience been?
Oh, it's been really, really fun. So Sydney got in touch with me maybe a month and a half ago and asked if I would be willing to write a daily This Day in History kind of blurb for Riverbender. And I said, that sounds really fun. Let me play around with that and see what makes sense, what I can do. And I I tried first to just do a quick sentence about this day in history, whatever happened. But I realized that you need so much background information about stuff. So, I'd see something and think it sounded cool, like, oh, the Rip Van Winkle Society is meeting today at their club. And I was like, that sounds fun. But I didn't know what the Rip Van Winkle Society was. I didn't want it to be like, the Rip Van Winkle Society is dedicated to taking the vote away from women.
Right.
Something
like
that.
Mambly,
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like, well,
oh my God, that would be brutal.
Right?
That would be...
You don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I love this. So now it gives you a little bit once a week. These are coming out.
Yes.
And so what's the idea behind how you're going to go about these? Is it one of those things where you're going to chronicleize, or is it just topics that kind of are poignant for the month? For you, how are you breaking this down?
Well, thanks for asking, CJ.
You're welcome.
So my original idea was to kind of use this to take care of some of the misconceptions around history in Alton.
Yeah.
And then I realized that was going to be really hard to do every week. Mm-hmm. So I can kind of save some of that stuff. One of my biggest things is everything around the Piasa bird. I love, love, love the Piasa bird. But the story from 1836 about Chief Watoga was made up by a short-lived college professor in 1836.
Are you serious? Hold on here. Stop the show.
Yeah.
I was told at St. Mary's in the second grade what the Piasa bird story, and that was a lie?
It was a lie.
Oh my God. I feel cheated.
The Piasa was a painting on the bluff. Bird and the wings were added by a professor from Shirtlift named John Russell in 1836 and printed in the Alton Telegraph and in newspapers around the country. So it's a real thing. It's just that part of it is a myth made up by a white guy in 1836.
The Telegraph embellishing again.
Well, and I mean, he brought it forward as a real thing. So
that makes sense.
It's not like all the places that ran with it were purposefully
in on the deal.
Yeah. He was a legitimate enough professor that they were like, all right, I guess this guy's knows what he's talking about. So stuff like that. So this is what I can do on the show. I can tell you my things like this.
Absolutely.
But so for the weekly, I quickly realized I needed to just focus on one topic, one theme, not one topic. So what I've been doing is going through the 1924 newspaper, and I chose 1924 because I figured 100 years ago was long enough that most of the people that were around will not be alive now to tell me that I'm doing this wrong. and it's recent enough that the newspaper was in full force. There are lots and lots of articles every day, and it's easy to read them. Like the earlier 1800s stuff, you really have to stop after a while because it's really hard to read the text. A lot of times it's not clear. So 100 years ago, and what I've literally been doing is going through the newspaper, page by page, day by day. And if something seems interesting to me, I clip it and I save it and then I do more research.
You better be thankful. You better be reading these is what I'm getting at here. That's incredible. But it shows you the work, because a lot of times, folks, a lot of people do this, and it's easy to gather like international historical things, from the Revolutionary War, because, George Washington slipped and broke his toe happened 84 times in, June.
Right.
But for this, it's a little bit more difficult because, you guys are really the source of history in the town.
Yeah, we're using our own resources, which is nice because then I do have access. I have really easy access to all of that. But I go outside of our stuff too. I list on my sources on these, and some of it is like the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the St. Louis Argus. I've gotten stuff from, the state and their archives. I called the University of Illinois a couple weeks ago for one of the articles because I couldn't find out. This is the second article I did about the beauty spots of Illinois, and I couldn't find out what the final 100 beauty spots they chose were. And I'm still not sure, but they sent me this like typed up thing from 1924 that someone had written that had some of them in it. So there are some things that I can't like take them to the full conclusion, but I'm at least trying to give everybody a little snapshot in these articles.
So the first one you wrote about, fill me in on it.
Okay, so the first one I wrote about was about Union Baptist Church honoring 3 Alton High graduates. So the original article just talked about the actual service that they were planning to honor these 3 graduates. And their names were Alexander Whitfield, Anna Margaret Cole, and Willie Alexander Young. And then I started doing more research, and they were the only 3 black graduates of this 90-person senior class.
Oh, wow.
In Alton High. Yeah. So the original article just talked about the service and the people, and then the more I looked into it, the more I found about kind of the background information. So they were the only 3. Whitfield was the valedictorian, which was a really big deal. It was the first time in 50 years that the valedictorian had been black. And it was kind of, they had extra security at graduation because there had been some anonymous threats against that, and he was giving a speech. Alton High, gave him the floor. Like he was a big part in the convocation exercises, and they didn't have any issues, but they did plan for it in case they did. So then I did a little more research on each of the people, and my first draft had like biographies of all 3 of them. And my husband was always my first editor, and he's like, Lacy, you're just listing facts again, which is like how I like to have some facts, guys.
Right. I like it.
Yeah. So that's what this is for. You need facts. But to kind of like tighten it into the story, I just talked about how Anna Margaret Cole's father was, he was the principal at Dunbar School, which is where they went before Alton High. And their house burned down. Like he and his family built a new house. It was burned down. He got blamed for it, even though he wasn't even in town. They had...
Sounds like me.
You ever have an issue like this?
Yeah, the last week, pretty much.
Oh, no. And he finally was acquitted later, but it was just horrific. And I'm sure racially motivated. It was not good. And then the family ended up moving away afterwards. I think he died before they moved away. But yeah, just because he was a principal and he was trying to do, the things to make life easier for his students, which, we've talked about that. Alton does good things. Alton does bad things. This was one of the bad ones. And then another part of that was that when Alexander Whitfield, who was the valedictorian, was going on the senior cruise down the Mississippi, he got kicked off because he was black. And that was the steamship that wouldn't let him get on to go on the excursion. So,
oh, God.
Here's this celebrated valedictorian, and he can't even go celebrate with his class.
Right. That's just terrible.
Yeah.
Well, I also saw in here, too, that George Samuels, the doctor, actually has a pretty cool story, too. He actually is the one that delivered Miles Davis.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the one that gave the invocation at the Union Baptist Church service. And yes, he delivered Miles Davis a couple years later.
Look at this, first black pharmacist in the city of Alton, too.
Yeah, his son was.
That's really cool. I had no idea. That's awesome. Well, and now when you're writing these, what surprises you the most whenever you're putting it together? Because obviously you know the facts and you just kind of hit on the head right there, with your husband going, all right, all you're doing is listing here. Now, how difficult or how easy is it for you to take some of that information and tell the story? Because I'm sure that gets a little bit difficult going through different articles and going, now how do I make this my own?
Yes. So one of the things that has made it a little easier, the first two, the two that have come out were not necessarily the hardest, but they took the most time because I was like trying to find everybody's biographies. And like for all three of these people, they left town, lived in other places, died in other places. And I was a little disappointed because that meant I couldn't use any of them in Vintage Voices.
Oh.
They're not buried in the Alton Cemetery.
Yep, okay.
But yeah, so I was trying to get this like, well, what happened next and how did their lives work? And then after the first two, when all that got edited out, it made it a lot easier for me to just focus on the story. Like, we don't need to know what happens 50 years later. This is just a snapshot of this particular moment in time. So that has gotten way easier. Also, I have kind of like relaxed into it a little bit. Like, I think when you're writing something every week, there's less pressure than like the Hayner newsletter comes out 4 times a year. And so I need that to be exactly the way that I want it to be. Whereas for this,
well, and two, your newsletter's in print. I mean, you can't really change that one.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Like, if I have a problem in here, I can just call Sydney and be like, could you really edit this? Really quickly?
That's what I normally do.
Yeah. Whereas the newsletter, it's like, that's how it's going to be forever.
You're done. Yeah.
But another surprising thing is that I think I'm going to write about one thing, and then it turns out I'm writing about something else. This one hasn't come out yet, but I have one that was I decided it was going to be about the 4th of July celebrations 100 years ago and today. And I started writing it, and I found this article about a kid who was basically fireworks exploded on him, and he was very hurt. He was okay.
God.
I don't know what happened to him 50 years after, but he was okay a week later or so. But the biggest issue was a risk of infection, because this is before antibiotics were available, or even, you knew what was wrong, but you couldn't do anything about it. And so it veered into a whole thing about penicillin and other people who died at the time from much less issues, much
I've
less
said
serious
it before.
issues.
I stubbed my toe. I'm dead in the 1800s. Okay, and it's not like, I hate to sound funny about it, but no one realizes and takes for granted the things that would have killed us 100 years ago.
Oh my gosh! And even when they discovered penicillin, which was in 1927, it was like 20 years later before it was widely available. Because even after World War II, it wasn't. It was available, but it wasn't something you could just go to the pharmacy and get.
Well, and like when we were in Rome, to hear like no one touched the water forever, as they drink vinegar, you drink wine because the water was going to kill you.
Kids were drinking beer because that was safer than water.
Like, I was just thinking, could you imagine drinking vinegar though? I mean, no wonder everyone was so damn hateful. Yeah, I mean, hey, we're rolling around top of the hour. Lacy isn't going anywhere though. The time's 9:58, and we're coming back on to the 17th day of June after a quick little pause. And while I have you, are you looking for a fresh start on the road to recovery? A life free from addiction's possible, and it starts at Centerstone. Centerstone's that national leader in mental health and substance use disorder treatment for people of all ages, with that commitment to delivering care that truly changes people's lives. They're dedicated clinicians, if I could speak today, use evidence-based practices and their treatment programs. So that means you're getting something that's tailor-made for you. There's so many unknowns on that road to recovery, but you'll know that Centerstone's there for you every step of the way. Addiction can happen to anybody, but the good thing is, so can recovery. So start working toward that today by visiting recoverwithus.org. That's recoverwithus.org, or by calling 1-877-HOPE-123.
No matter the season, Play It Again Sports in Edwardsville has the gear the athletes need to get in the game. Whether you're shopping for the newest sports equipment or saving money on quality used gear, Play It Again Sports carries what you need to maximize performance to get the most out of every swing, kick, stroke, or shot. We'll even buy your used goods, paying cash on the spot. We carry all the gear for all the sports all year long. We're your hometown sporting goods store. Play It Again Sports, conveniently located at 4 Club Center Court in Edwardsville.
I just got a new air conditioner. Top of the line.
I bet mine's better. It's so efficient and quiet, I hardly know it's running.
I've got you both trumped. I've got a Linux.
So do I.
Barrett Heating and Cooling carries Lennox products to meet any budget. Don't gamble with your energy dollars. Call Barrett Heating and Cooling and start saving today.
Lennox. Innovation never felt so good.
With over 20 years of experience, Wilson's Tree Service has the expertise to handle all of your tree care needs. Licensed and fully insured, their team of experts are dedicated to providing reliable service. Plus, with a 24-hour emergency service line, Wilson's will always be there for you. Don't risk tackling that timber by yourself. Trust the local professionals at Wilson's Tree Service. Visit treeservicealtonil.org to get started today.
Welcome to Evergreen Place, a community that embodies joyful living, independence, and financial freedom for seniors. If you're looking for a full day of activities or to relax in your apartment, we have you covered. Located on the Alton Memorial Campus. To know us is to love us. Experience the difference at Evergreen Place.
Life's better when you're under our roof. That's because our expert agents will make you feel totally protected with the right auto and home coverage at the right price. Also, you can enjoy the dreams you've worked so hard to achieve. American Family Insurance.
Since 1993, Sparks Junk Removal is always adapting to the needs of our clients. That is why we now offer weekly trash pickup for selected areas. Plus, we offer driveway safe rubber tire dumpster rental. Give us a call today at 618-781-1407 or visit us at sparksjunkremoval.net.
Not sure if you've noticed, but those advertised prices from the other dealers are just a bunch of blah, blah, blah. At Roberts Motors, the advertised price is the price you pay. And that, my friend, is great news for you. Don't fall for their so-called incentives that will leave you banging your head against the wall. Go with Roberts Motors. Prices you can trust and people you will like. That's the Roberts Motors way. And trust me, it's the way to go.
In the heart-pounding moments of the game, every move counts, just like in chiropractic care. Dr. Andrew Dykman of Rosewood Chiropractic champions this belief, supporting our teams in every drive and supporting his patients for nearly 20 years, offering affordable, compassionate, all-natural wellness care. Call 618-259-2676 or visit rosewoodchiropractic.com today. Welcome back to our daily show. Here's CJ. Welcome back, 10:03, as we have Lacy McDonald in studio. 100 years ago, Alton's beauty spots wanted. All right, now fill me in on this, okay? Because you talked about beauty spots, and I was getting confused, but it doesn't take much. So when I think of beauty spots, I think of something that kind of looks a little bit rougher, but still beautiful. This is probably not it.
Oh. I don't know, because we're talking about the definition from 100 years ago.
Oh.
So who even knows what has changed in language?
What defines beauty 100 years ago?
Well,
you know,
I could do an article on that. Maybe I will.
That would be I'm telling. This is why we need the segment every week.
Yeah, help me brainstorm. Because I could do things like look at ads for the clothing that was being sold, the hairstyles.
Well, I think that's why I love this show or love doing this, is because it humanizes everything. Because the partners or the collaboration and participation is what keeps everything going. And God, to have more of this is wonderful. So beauty spots are what we're talking about, but not those. That article comes out when it comes out. This is about landmarks or nature, natural resources.
So I didn't even realize this, but with state parks in Illinois, when they were first when they were first founded, the focus was on history more than natural beauty. I know. Like, I think, like, State Park, you go there, you hike, you appreciate the natural wonders.
Like the Teddy Roosevelt thing.
Yeah. But no, the first state park in Illinois was in 1908, and it was Fort Massac, Massac, in southern Illinois. And then Starved Rock was the second one in 1911, but that wasn't because it was beautiful. That had to do with the history, and I don't remember right now, but there's a link to all of this in the article, all the history of the early parks. But yeah, the focus was history. And so in 1920, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign created an art extension committee, and the chairman was Laredo Taft. He was a sculptor, and he's the one who created the Alma Mater statue, which is like the really famous one at the University of Illinois. And an Alton citizen, Catherine V. Dickinson, was on the committee. She was a music teacher here, and the whole point of the committee was to help Illinois citizens see beauty in Illinois. They had a tour every year. The theme was See Illinois First, so people were traveling in Illinois, and which is kind of cool because it's kind of like an early version of tourism. Yeah. And this was when there were only about 5 state parks, and so they decided to highlight 100 beauty spots in Illinois, and so this article is about Catherine V. Dickinson encouraging people in Alton to take photos, submit them to be part of this essentially contest, because then the photos were going to stay at the University of Illinois forever, and the spots would be put on maps. So when people were traveling, and the automobile was really new in this time period, so people were buying maps that would have these kind of, I don't want to say roadside attractions, but off the beaten path places on the maps.
Were state parks, were they funded by states at that point in time, or was the language different then? Because I'm sure that there's always a lot of developments when it comes to establishing. I mean, because no one heard of a state park before, I'm sure, whenever they're doing all this. And I didn't know if it have any correlation with funding. Is that why it was all historic? Because that always fascinates me too. Is when did the government funding come in, or the government real responsibility come into play when it came to national and state parks? Because I'm sure it has to have had altered throughout the years.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're right. I
wouldn't go that far.
I'm sure that you're right about this very specific thing, CJ.
Mark it down. 10:07.
From what I understand, a lot of these were funded by the state, but there were also local initiatives that were part of it. I know with Pierre Marquette State Park, which was called something different in its early years, but that was the early 1930s. Some of the money was raised by people that lived around here, and then the state contributed as well. So they were state parks, and I think like with Cahokia Mounds, that was initially a state park, and then it became a national park. And so then kind of the ownership changes. So I think this is around the time when people were kind of noticing that. And you talked about Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, there was a huge push to appreciate the natural beauty in the United States, and I'm sure that filtered down to the state level. But yeah, even with the places that I was like, oh, that would have been valuable because it's so beautiful. Right. That's not necessarily why they were chosen at first.
That's interesting. Well, and Lacy, seriously, that's why I'm so glad that you're doing these articles, because they're really fascinating pieces, and it brings you back to the time, because we always look back on history, and I think the wrong way as people. We look back at it from a present day standpoint. Yes. And we don't go back and think about all the other nuances, like the automobile being developed in tourism for the first time, and how do you get the word out, and to be able to really define a beauty spot or use that as really your first ever taste of Enjoy Illinois is really what it was. That's pretty darn cool, and that Alton was always a player in that kind of the beauty of the state too was really unique too.
Yes, yeah, and you kind of see how individual people or groups of people helped form all of our understandings of Illinois state parks. I mean, that kind of thing, because it was individual people that were behind a lot of this to kind of make it a thing that we all understood as just, that's part of our state history. Like, no, like they were on the ground making it happen. And it's been really interesting because I'm like living in 1924 right now. Yeah. And so I'll read things where it's not that I had like this specific misconception that I thought anything about, but like the roads weren't paved. So I'm seeing all these like fundraisers to get cinders to cinder the roads. And you're like, oh, that's right. Not only were they not paved, they were dirt, and they were just like, there's one automobile for every 10 Altonians in this time period. So people were just starting to be drivers, essentially. And so I'll talk about that in another show. But yeah, like you're like, oh, right. Even if it was a road in that time period, it's not a road the way that we understand it to be now.
Absolutely. And Lacy, what are you writing about next?
Ooh, okay. So this next week is about smallpox.
So, okay, I got it. My dad and I don't know how I even remember this damn conversation. Actually, it was the first time I watched the John Adams show whenever I was like 9 or 10 years old when it first came out, was whenever they were showing how the vaccinations of smallpox worked back in the 1700s. Number one, I would have died right then and there if someone's cut my damn arm with whatever that was to stick smallpox. You could just go ahead and throw me out to pasture. I'll take it. Like, for real. I'm not doing it. But also, to really understand, like, this is really how the first form of advanced medicine really was. I mean, so amazing, because he's a microbiologist. So, like, it really fascinates him, too.
Your dad is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, he can come on. We can all talk about smallpox.
He teaches microbiology and does all the prerequisites for nursing at Lewis and Clark.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. That's really cool. Yeah, smallpox, like, we could let's just set aside a whole show to talk about smallpox.
Let's do it. That would be, well, it wouldn't be fun, but I should need to clarify.
A lot of my articles are going to be a little bit morbid, so.
But you know, it's a realness to it though, because again, people in today's climate, I don't think could have survived a week in the 1800s or any time period during that, because I mean, yellow fever, smallpox, you name it. You're gonna pretty much. There's a good chance you're dying.
Yeah, and if you're not dying, you're blinded, you're scarred. Like well, and I mean, we don't have natural immunities built up either, so that would be so much worse for us to go back, because we don't have smallpox vaccinations now because we don't need them. But yeah, so smallpox is next. Super interesting.
Does it tie in Smallpox Island? Is that a thing?
I didn't tie it into Smallpox Island because I was trying to keep a tight story. But no, it was the next week, 100 years ago, Madison County had the highest number of new smallpox cases in the state. Yeah. So it's about how people reacted to that. And it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Well, Lacy, I am very interested in that. And while I have you, I don't know if you remember, but I told you I'd find this. The bar tab of the farewell party of George Washington, okay? Have you heard this one?
No.
54 bottles of Madeira, 60 bottles of claret, 8 bottles of whiskey, 22 bottles of porter, 8 bottles of hard cider, 12 of beer, and 7 bowls of alcoholic punch with 55 attendees.
55 attendees?
Yes, and I swear this is real. It cost around 89 pounds for all the alcohol.
How many of them died after that?
No wonder he stole all this stuff. He was drunk by the time he left that house.
Just grabbing everything.
So there you go. The first president of the United States, also the first individual of alcohol, I think, in this country. But there you go. So that would be about, for all of you at home keeping score, and for Lacy, 2 bottles of wine, several shots, and a few cups of punch for every guest. Oh man, we'd be hurting tomorrow. Yeah. 10:13, Lacy. I'm excited to see the smallpox article come out, and we got to set up are we doing Wednesdays?
That would be great.
Let's do Wednesdays.
Okay,
Lacy will be on now throughout whenever for Wednesdays, but we couldn't do this Wednesday because of the Juneteenth holiday, and Hayner's going to be off that day. I still got to go get my damn library card. I have it. It's waiting for me in the library. I got to just walk.
I wonder if I can just bring it to you next week.
Yeah, but I'd feel bad because it's right next door.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Yeah, that's
like
kind of
way.
That's a me problem. At 10:13, we'll take a quick break, and our daily show continues right after this.